The central theme of this chapter is forced fate and public betrayal. The emotional focus is Mira's inner humiliation, strength, and the chaos that triggers the story. The dramatic purpose is to ignite the plot by shattering her dreams and introducing Arjun, mysterious, unreadable, and watching from the shadows. The drums were supposed to drown her sorrow, but they only made it louder. The village square shimmered in heat and color. Marigolds draped from rooftops, brass bands blared celebratory chaos, and guests chattered like they hadn't come to witness a public execution. Because that's what it felt like to Mira. She stood at the mandip, dressed in crimson and gold, her hands trembling beneath layers of bridal bangles. Her groom, Rakesh, stood across from her. Or at least he had been. Now, all she saw was his retreating back as he turned from the sacred fire, tossed his garland to the ground, and spat out the words that would rip through her like knives. "I won't marry a girl with a stained character."
Gasps.
Whispers. A stunned silence dropped over the crowd before erupting into murmurs that twisted like snakes. Mira's mother collapsed with a shriek. Her father clenched his chest, humiliated beyond words. And Mira? She didn't move. She couldn't. The words were still echoing, not just in her ears, but in her bones.
Stained.
Character.
A lie.
A rumor. A deliberate, vicious attack. "I saw the photos," Rakesh hissed to the priest. "She was with some man in the city. I won't be made a fool of." There were no photos. She had only gone to a scholarship interview in Jaipur, escorted by a social worker. But truth doesn't matter when shame spreads faster. Eyes bore into her, hungry for scandal. No one stepped forward. No one defended her, except a tall figure, seated quietly near the back, stood up. He walked slowly, calmly, as if he hadn't just watched an entire family be ruined in front of him. A plain white kurta, dusty shoes, quiet eyes that seemed to cut through the noise. "I'll marry her," he said, voice deep, unreadable. A gasp sliced through the tension like lightning. Mira blinked. "What?" He stepped forward again. His gaze locked with hers, steady, emotionless, but intense. "I'll take responsibility, if no one else will." "Who are you?" Mira's uncle barked. "Arjun." He didn't elaborate. A murmur rippled through the crowd. No one knew who he was. A stranger? A drifter? A poor man looking for a bride? The priest hesitated. "The girl has to agree." All eyes turned to Mira.
Her throat was dry.
Her lips moved, but no sound came. This couldn't be happening. "Do you want to live with this shame forever?" her aunt hissed, dragging her aside. "At least he's willing. What choice do we have?"
Choice.
Mira nearly laughed. She turned back to Arjun, studying his face. He didn't flinch. He didn't smile. He offered nothing, no warmth, no cruelty. Just presence. "I don't know you," she said quietly. "I know," he replied. "But I won't humiliate you." For a second, just a second, she saw something in his eyes. Not kindness, not love, but a strange, watchful sadness. She swallowed her pride like acid, and nodded. The fire roared again. The crowd cheered awkwardly. And Mira married a man whose last name she didn't even know. The wedding ended. The drums died. The guests dispersed like crows after a feast. Back in her family home, Mira sat alone in the bridal room, stripped of jewelry, stripped of everything she had dreamed her wedding would be. The door creaked open. Arjun entered, standing silently in the doorway. "This room is yours," she said. "I'll sleep in the courtyard." "You're my wife now," he said, but there was no claim in his tone. No demand. She met his gaze. "You don't have to pretend. We both know what this is." He nodded once. "We'll leave tomorrow. You don't belong here anymore." Mira frowned. "Leave? Where?" "Somewhere no one will call you stained."
She stared.
"Why are you doing this?" For a beat, Arjun didn't answer. Then, almost too quietly, "Because once, someone destroyed my life with a lie too." And with that, he closed the door behind him. Cliffhanger ending line. Mira lay awake that night under a thin village moon, married to a stranger who carried secrets in his silence, never knowing she had just stepped into the arms of a man who owned more than just her fate. He owned an empire. This chapter explores new beginnings under emotional fog, trust versus survival, and the start of a layered, complicated connection between Mira and Arjun. The emotional focus is Mira's confusion, vulnerability, and first glimpse into a world that contradicts everything she assumed. The dramatic purpose is to shift the setting, deepen character dynamics, and tease Arjun's hidden life. The city hit her like a slap, cold, blinding, and fast. Mira clutched her small bag on the train platform as skyscrapers loomed like watchtowers in the morning fog. She wasn't sure what hurt more, the silence between her and Arjun or the unknown waiting beyond the gates. They hadn't spoken since they boarded the overnight train. No questions. No small talk. Arjun simply stared out the window like he was tracking ghosts across the landscape. He didn't touch her. He didn't even look at her unless necessary. And yet, he hadn't left her behind. "Come," he said now, voice low. He led her through crowds and honking cabs, weaving through the chaos with practiced ease. She struggled to keep up in her modest sandals, her village sari drawing curious stares. He noticed, and without a word, took off his jacket and draped it over her shoulders.
Warm. Clean.
Smelled faintly of something expensive she couldn't name. "Don't draw attention," he murmured. Her heart ticked faster.
Who was he?
He hailed a cab. Not a rickshaw, a black car, sleek and silent. The driver stepped out, bowed slightly. "Sir, the suite is ready."
Sweet?
Mira blinked. Where are we going?" Arjun's jaw tightened. "Just trust me." The car sliced through the city, like a shadow. Mira tried to look outside without gawking, but everything was too much. The speed, the glass towers, the digital billboards flashing fashion and perfume ads like magic. She felt like a misplaced piece of earth in a world of steel. Finally, the car pulled into an underground garage. A doorman opened her door before she even touched the handle. They entered through a private elevator, mirrored walls, soft music, Arjun's reflection staring back at her like he didn't belong in it either. The elevator dinged on the 23rd floor. The doors opened to another world. The suite was enormous. Floor-to-ceiling windows, marble floors, a chandelier that looked like floating stars. She stepped in, barely breathing. "This isn't a house," she whispered. "It's a palace." Arjun set her bag down near the entrance. "It's temporary." She turned to him. "You told everyone you were poor. Even your kurta is stitched like a laborer's." He didn't answer. She took a step forward. "Why are we here? Who are you really?" Arjun met her eyes. Someone who learned long ago, it's easier to protect the truth when no one believes you matter. That wasn't an answer. Not really. But something about it made her go still. He handed her a phone. "You'll need this. It's a burner. No social media. No family calls." Her throat tightened. "I can't call my mother?" "Not yet." She pulled away. "You're controlling me now?" "No," he said firmly. "I'm protecting you." She folded her arms. "From what?" He looked at her and for the first time, his mask cracked. "From people who would use you to get to me." That froze her. She stepped back, eyes searching his. "You're not just anyone." His silence was confirmation. The room darkened as clouds passed over the sun outside. Somewhere in the distance, the city honked and roared, but inside, only two strangers faced off, married, bound, but utterly unfamiliar. Mira sat on the edge of the ivory sofa, fingers clenched around the hem of her sari. "You should have told me the truth." "You weren't ready to hear it," he replied quietly. "Neither was I." Before she could respond, his phone rang. A single buzz. He checked the screen and everything about him shifted. Shoulders squared. Eyes narrowed. Voice cold. "I have to leave." She stood.
Now.
"Someone just made a move I've been waiting for." He turned to go but paused at the door. "Mira." She looked up. "Don't open the door for anyone. Not even housekeeping. You're not safe yet." Then he was gone. Cliffhanger ending line. Alone in the glass palace, Mira stood in silence, her reflection scattered across 1,000 polished surfaces, wondering just how deep Arjun's secrets went and why the sound of his name already made her heart ache. Hidden Truths and Forbidden Attraction. This chapter builds the emotional connection and tension between Mira and Arjun, deepening the mystery around his double life while showing Mira's awakening strength and self-worth. It focuses on emotional push-pull, rising danger, and the simmering potential of love born under pressure. The city lights flickered across the marble floor like ghosts trying to whisper secrets. Mira stood by the window, arms wrapped around herself. Down below, the world bustled in neon and urgency. But up here, in this palace of glass and silence, she was trapped with questions that no one dared answer. Arjun hadn't returned. It had been 12 hours. 12 hours since he left with that steel in his voice. 12 hours since she realized her life was no longer her own. She tried to distract herself, opened drawers, peeked into rooms, even flipped through the hotel's suite's thick books of services and regulations. But everything screamed luxury.
Control. Power.
And she had none. She finally sat at the edge of the velvet chaise lounge and opened the phone he'd given her. No contacts. No history. Just one text thread. Arjun, don't go near the elevator. Arjun, stay out of sight. Lock the door. No, are you okay? No, I'll be back soon. Only orders. Cold, sharp orders. And yet somehow, they didn't feel cruel. They felt afraid. But of what? The door clicked suddenly. Mira jumped. Keys turned. Her breath caught in her throat as she grabbed a decorative vase, not for flowers, but for defense. The door opened. It was him, but not the same version that had left. His shirt was torn slightly at the collar, hair tousled, a faint cut on his lip. And his eyes, those unreadable eyes, held something stormy now. Exhaustion? Rage? Regret? He shut the door behind him and leaned his head back against it for a moment, exhaling slowly. You're hurt, Mira said before she could stop herself. Arjun looked at her, startled for a second, like he'd forgotten she was even there. Then, it's nothing. But she was already moving toward him. That's not nothing. You're bleeding. I've had worse, he muttered and walked past her. She followed. What happened? Where did you go? Who are you really, Arjun?
He stopped.
Shoulders tense. Then slowly he turned around and walked back, too close. Mira could smell the sweat, the danger, the quiet heartbreak of whatever war he was fighting. You really want to know? He asked softly. She didn't flinch. Yes. He studied her for a long moment. Then something shifted. Maybe it was exhaustion, or maybe he was just done pretending. I run a company your village's TV will never mention. Not because it's small, because it's buried in layers of shell names, offshore accounts, and ghost boards. She frowned. You mean illegal? He gave a faint, bitter smile.
No.
Just very powerful. I've made enemies with men who'd rather see me dead than successful. And they're closer than you think. She stepped back. Why hide it all? Why marry me like this? I didn't plan to, he admitted. That wedding wasn't mine to begin with. Her breath caught. What do you mean? He didn't answer. Instead, he moved to the minibar, poured water into a glass, and downed it like he needed it more than air. You were brave back there, he said, eyes on the city lights. Facing that chaos. Holding your ground in front of everyone. Most people crack under half that pressure. Mira looked down, surprised by the compliment. I've faced worse. Arjun turned slowly. I believe you. There was something in his tone. Something that softened the harsh lines of his face. You don't belong in a cage, Mira. Then why put me in one? She snapped. Silence stretched between them. Then, finally, he said, because the only thing more dangerous than setting you free is someone else getting to you first. She didn't know how long they stood there, shadows in a room made of light. But for the first time, they weren't just husband and wife by accident. They were co-survivors in a world wrapped in secrets. Just then, her phone buzzed. A text. From an unknown number. Unknown. He's lying to you. Want proof? Open the bedroom closet. She froze. Arjun saw her expression shift. What is it? She looked up slowly, heart racing. Nothing. He narrowed his eyes but didn't push. She turned away, cradling the phone, heartbeat thundering. Cliffhanger ending line. Later that night, when Arjun finally fell asleep on the couch, Mira tiptoed toward the bedroom closet, her fingers trembling on the handle, unaware that what she'd find inside would shatter everything she thought she was beginning to understand. Trust tested and secrets unraveling. This chapter deepens Mira's internal conflict, her rising attraction to Arjun versus her growing suspicion. The tension hinges on whether she can trust him and whether he's protecting her or hiding something darker. A major clue will tilt the balance. The night was still, but Mira's heart wasn't. The sound of Arjun's steady breathing from the couch was the only thing anchoring her to the moment. Her bare feet barely made a sound as she moved across the suite, shadows crawling beside her like nervous ghosts. Her fingers paused on the closet handle. She glanced back. Still asleep. Her pulse quickened. What could be in there? Why did someone text me? Who is watching us? She opened the closet. At first glance, nothing. Just rows of luxury suits and pressed shirts. But then, tucked behind a hanging black trench coat, something gleamed under the dim light. A briefcase. Mira hesitated, then pulled it out. It was heavier than it looked, sealed with a biometric lock. But the screen was already active. And shockingly, it accepted her fingerprint. With a soft click, it opened. Inside were files, dozens of them. Printed reports, marked photos, cash bundles clipped neatly with bands, and on top of it all, a wedding certificate. Her wedding certificate. But not the one from the village. This one was dated 2 months before the day they were forced to marry. Her name. His name. And a signature that matched Arjun's. What is this? She flipped to the next page. Photos. Surveillance style. Of her. Walking in the village. Working in the fields. Talking to her uncle. Every image dated, labeled. A cold shiver ran through her. He'd been watching her long before the wedding. This marriage wasn't a coincidence. A sharp noise behind her made her spin. Arjun stood at the door, barefoot, silent, jaw clenched. How long have you been awake? She whispered. Long enough, he said, his voice low and unreadable. Her hands trembled. You were spying on me. He stepped closer, eyes burning. I was protecting you. From what? From my own life. From the truth. Her voice cracked. Or were you just planning to buy me like property, the same way my uncle did? The silence stretched. Then, I had to know who you were before I trusted you, he said, voice harder now. Before I let you into this world. This world, she laughed bitterly. You mean the world where you lie for a living and lock people in glass towers? You don't understand. No, Arjun.
I don't, she snapped.
You hide behind secrets and money. But I'm not your pawn. Not anymore. He looked like he'd been slapped. Mira, he said softer now. If you read further. I don't need to read more, she said, clutching the file. Because now I see you. She turned to leave the room, but he stepped in her path. There was a beat, just silence, and the hum of tension. Then he said something so quiet, it was barely a whisper. I did all this because I loved you before you even knew my name. The air left her lungs. She froze. What? She asked, voice brittle. He didn't move. I came to your village for a land deal.
But then I saw you.
You were carrying 2 heavy water pots, yelling at a rich man for throwing plastic into the river. You didn't care who he was, you only cared about what was right. She blinked. That moment changed everything, Arjun continued. I delayed my return. I kept coming back, watched from afar, tried to forget you. But I couldn't. Mira's throat tightened. But you let them force me into marriage, she accused. No, he said, eyes glinting. I paid your uncle to arrange it. The room went still. Her world spun. You what? I knew he was planning to sell you off to someone cruel. I made a deal. I pretended to be poor. I took the fall. I thought if I revealed the truth too soon, you'd hate me forever. Tears pricked her eyes. And you thought this was better? He looked broken. I thought being your husband any way I could was better than never having you at all. For a long moment, the air between them pulsed with emotion. Confusion.
Pain.
Longing. She wanted to scream, to cry, to run. But part of her also wanted to believe him. To believe that behind all the lies was a man who had been desperately, stupidly in love with her. Why now? She whispered. Why tell me this now? His voice cracked. Because the people after me, they know you exist now. They'll use you to get to me. And I need you to trust me if we're going to survive this. Just then, her phone buzzed again. Same unknown number. Unknown. Too late. He isn't the only one watching you.
Turn on the TV.
Mira lunged for the remote. She flipped on the massive screen. Breaking news. Anonymous leak suggests Arjun Verma, reclusive billionaire CEO, is hiding a secret wife in Mumbai. Investigations are underway, and photos are expected to be released. The image flashed on screen, her. Blurred but unmistakable. She dropped the remote. It clattered to the floor. Arjun's jaw clenched. The world was no longer watching from afar. It had just kicked their door down. Cliffhanger ending line. And as the screen cut to black, Mira realized she wasn't just trapped in a lie. She was now the most hunted woman in the country, all because a stranger had fallen in love with her. Shattered trust, public exposure, and emotional eruption. This chapter reaches a boiling point. Mira's humiliation becomes public, and both leads are cornered by the fallout. The emotional climax strikes, a raw confrontation, a media scandal, and a moment where both must decide if their love is strength or illusion. Mumbai, next morning. The city didn't wake quietly. It roared. Billboards blinked with breaking news. Paparazzi swarmed like bees. Headlines flashed across phones like lightning strikes. Billionaire Arjun Verma's secret wife revealed. From mud huts to marble mansions. Who is Mira? CEO's village bride. Love story or scandal? Inside the penthouse, Mira sat frozen on the velvet rug, knees tucked to her chest, the cold TV light flickering on her face. She had barely slept. Her name, her face, her life, now twisted into tabloid poison. Arjun stood by the window, staring down at the flashing cameras 10 floors below. His phone buzzed nonstop. He hadn't touched it. Mira, he said gently, we need to leave.
Now. She didn't respond.
He crouched beside her.
Please.
I have a private safe house. She turned, eyes sharp and glassy. Why did you lie to me, Arjun? He blinked. Not about being rich. Not about the spying. Why did you lie about loving me? Her voice cracked. He looked wounded. I didn't. Then why do I feel like your trophy? She snapped. You stole my choice. My name is on screens because of you. He looked away. She stood. I was humiliated in the village, and now I'm being humiliated in front of the world. And all I ever did was try to survive. Arjun flinched. You think this is easy for me? I've kept you out of the spotlight for months to protect you. I didn't leak this. Someone wanted to expose us. Who? She challenged. A business rival? Your ex? Your board PR team? His phone buzzed again. He picked it up. One look, and his jaw tightened. He handed it to her. A video. She clicked play. Leaked. Secret footage of Arjun Verma and unknown woman arguing in penthouse. Sources say wife was forced into marriage. Grainy footage of last night played. Her yelling, him frozen. The wedding certificate on the table. Someone had bugged the room. Her blood ran cold. Arjun, she whispered. They're inside. Your security is compromised. His expression darkened. We're leaving. Now. Later. Underground parking garage. The elevator opened to chaos. A flash. A shout. Dozens of reporters surged. Mira ducked instinctively, heart hammering. Mira, is it true you were paid to marry him? Were you pregnant before the wedding? Are you from that scandal-ridden village in Madhya Pradesh? Did you know Arjun was your husband when you slapped him in public? She froze. That last one. A monitor by the garage showed an old clip, her slapping a man at a charity camp. A poor, shy volunteer, who now was revealed as Arjun.
Gasps.
It was him. Her eyes snapped to him. You were there? He nodded slowly. That was the first time we touched. Her throat tightened. And you didn't tell me? There was never a right time, he said quietly. Security shoved the crowd back. They climbed into the armored black SUV. But the silence between them was louder than the media frenzy. On the road, 45 minutes later. The safe house was just outside the city, a modern fortress, hidden behind palm trees and mirrored glass. But the moment Mira stepped inside, she turned to face Arjun. I need to know everything, she said. No more lies. No more walls. Who are you really? He hesitated, then walked over to a drawer and pulled out a thin file. My real name is Arjun Rajvarma. I own 37 companies. But none of that matters. What matters is this. He handed her a photo. Her. From 5 years ago. Carrying books in a schoolyard, hair in a braid, wearing a faded blue kurta. You were 17. I funded the school you went to. You never knew. But I saw you. Saw how smart you were.
Brave.
Loud when you believed in something. She stared, stunned. I've loved you since then, he said. I just didn't know how to deserve you. Tears pricked her eyes. Then, why does it feel like you own me? Silence. Then he stepped back. You're right. His voice was hoarse. You're not mine to keep. You never were. If you want to go, I'll have my team arrange it. The sound of high heels clicked across the marble floor, like a countdown to war. Amara stood frozen in the doorway of the ballroom, her breath caught in her throat as her eyes locked on the man she had called her husband, Rihan. But he wasn't the same Rihan she had shared burnt rice and quiet silences with back in their tiny village shack.
No.
This man was sharp in a tailored black suit, the dim gold lights casting an expensive gleam on his silver watch. He stood at the center of power, flanked by executives laughing, actually laughing with men who owned half the city. And on his arm was another woman, tall, elegant, draped in red silk and confidence. She leaned in close, whispering something into his ear. He didn't flinch. A flicker of ice danced down Amara's spine. This was not the Rihan she had cooked for in the smoky kitchen. This man didn't carry firewood. He signed contracts with the same hands that had once patched a leaking roof with his shirt. Her grip tightened around the invitation card still in her hand, the gold print mocking her with every curl of its expensive ink. CEO Rihan Dev's private gala. Invitation only. She wasn't even meant to be here. She had found the invitation accidentally, hidden under the drawer in the apartment she now realized had secrets in every corner. Still, she had come. Because something inside her needed to see it with her own eyes. That the man who had let her sleep beside him for a year, barefoot and broken, was never poor, never helpless, and, perhaps worst of all, never truly hers. Across the ballroom, Rihan felt it before he saw her. The shift in the air. The faint scent of sandalwood and jasmine. And then, Amara. His head turned sharply. She stood like a flame in the shadows, wearing the same blue dress he'd once bought her from a street vendor, claiming it made her look like rain after a drought. She hadn't believed him then. She didn't look like she believed anything now. Their eyes met. Rihan felt the ground underneath him ripple. She knows. The woman on his arm, Alina, his longtime business partner and the media's favorite rumor, followed his gaze and let out a small, knowing sigh. So, the village wife shows up. Rihan's jaw tightened. She's not just. Don't. Alina interrupted coolly. Not here. Not now. But it was already too late. Amara was walking toward them. Not fast, not angry, just steady. Like a storm that didn't need thunder to destroy everything in its path. Quite the performance, Amara said, her voice low, eyes flicking from Alina to Rihan. All these years pretending to be poor while owning half the skyline. Amara, listen. I did listen, she cut him off. Every time you said you couldn't afford medicine for your cough. Every time I offered my bangles to pay for rent. I listened when you said all you had was me. Her voice cracked, but she didn't let it fall apart. Turns out, you had plenty. Just not the truth. Silence folded over them. Alina shifted, slightly uncomfortable. Rihan reached out instinctively, but Amara stepped back. Don't touch me, she whispered. His hand froze in midair. I didn't mean for it to happen like this. You didn't mean for me to find out? Her laugh was bitter. That you're Rihan Dev. That you let me beg the landlord while your company bought the building. His lips parted, but he had no defense. Only regret. Deep, pulsing, and far too late. She turned to go, but he spoke, fast and low, like a man chasing the last train. You saved me, Amara. That night at the temple steps. You remember? Of course she did. He had been bleeding, lost, hiding from men who wanted him ruined. She'd fed him warm rice and lied to the villagers to keep him safe. And when he asked her to marry him, she thought it was desperation. Not love. Never love. You said you were just a farmer, she said softly. You let me believe that. I was just a man then, Rihan said, stepping closer. Running from everything, boardrooms, betrayals, family politics. But you, his voice broke. You were the only thing that ever felt real. A beat passed, and then Amara's eyes shimmered, but her smile was sad. Then why did you hide me like a sin? He had no answer, just the weight of her words pressing into his chest. Amara walked out of the ballroom that night without looking back. Outside, the rain had started to fall, soft, steady, and cold. She let it soak her, step by step, until the city swallowed her whole. And behind her, Rihan stood alone. For the first time in years, stripped of his wealth, stripped of his lies, stripped of the only woman who had loved him when he had nothing. But what neither of them saw was the photographer on the second-floor balcony. Camera still warm, zoom lens still pointed. And the image, a broken CEO, reaching for a woman in blue who walked away without flinching. The next morning, it would be everywhere. Village wife storms CEO gala, secret marriage exposed. And for Amara, there would be no more hiding.